No, 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 no.
What's going on, ladies and gents, boys and girls, guardians of all ages? Joker back again once again, and today, people, today I have one question and one question alone. Does Destiny really need weapon crafting, or was weapon crafting a mistake? Now, I know that some of you may be inclined to rush to the comment section and go, "But Joker!" and explain in excoriating detail why I'm stupid for even thinking such heretical thoughts. But try listening to my argument first, because at least then you'll know what I'm talking about, and you're not just writing an argument based on the title of the video. Oh, who am I kidding? People who comment based on the title of the video didn't even make it this far. Silly me. So for those of you who have stuck around to listen to my argument, Season of the Opulence, Season of the Haunted. I did this joke last video, didn't I? And with the new season comes a slew of new and reissued weapons. I've touched on this twice before, but because this is a dedicated weapons video, I should go ahead and reiterate my thoughts on the Season of Opulence weapons being reissued. The reissuing of the Season of Opulence weapons isn't that big of a deal. Unlike, say, the classic example of having Gnawing Hunger sunset and then literally come back with no changes, the Season of Opulence weapons have been updated to two of the core weapon systems introduced with Witch Queen, that of origin perks and weapon crafting. As Bungie has demonstrated throughout, well, the totality of Destiny, they can't go in and retroactively update loot you have to fall into new systems. So fine, whatever, if you're going to reissue loot, it has to be done the way that the Season of Opulence weapons were reissued. On top of that, there was a decent spattering of new loot released beside it. But I digress. So the world we live in is one where Season of the Opulence weapons are back again once again, alongside a handful of new weapons, all of which are available through crafting. And this is where, in my opinion, the reward structure for this season falls apart. So before we get into it, how does loot this season work? For those of you who already know, please bear with me, every video is of course someone's first. So the Leviathan public space offers a couple of things that you can do to get loot. The main thing is the Containment Public Event. This offers 6 new weapons and 1 new armor set, all of which are craftable and require you to obtain 5 deep sight versions of them before resonance can be achieved. Obtaining the Opulence weapons is completely different. To obtain Austringer, Drang, Beloved, and the Callus Mini Tool, you first need to get an Opulence key. And how do you get said Opulence key? Welp, you knuckle down, you put on a podcast, and you run around and around and around and around and around the different zones on the Leviathan, looking for chests, looking for events that spawn chests, like high value targets. You kill them, they drop a chest, you open the chest, and you hope and you pray that the contents of the chest are your Opulence key. As somebody who did this for 3 out of the 5 Austringers I needed to craft one, this is quite possibly one of the most mind-numbing things I think I've ever done in Destiny. And I've spent a weekend jumping off the map in Trials of Osiris for bounty. Now, the way that Bungie seemingly designed this weapon grind to play out was over the course of weeks, with the Opulence weapons and keys seemingly there just to get you your first Opulence weapon, which is required for weapon focusing. It seems that Bungie decided the best way for players to farm these weapons out would be to upgrade the Crown of Sorrow. For those of you who do not know, the Crown of Sorrow is the seasonal vendor, and like all seasonal vendors, for the last year has a series of perks that can be purchased with the currency earned from doing challenges or leveling up the vendor. Once you have obtained this currency, Figments of Darkness, one of the perks that you can unlock with this currency allows you to focus Umbral Engrams, giving you the ability to focus for either opulent loot or Season of the Hunted loot. Once you have unlocked this, you can focus your Umbral Engrams to unlock specific weapons. I can only speak from my personal experience, but once I unlocked this perk, it only took 6 engrams to get the 2 deep sight Austringers I still needed. Though with RNG being a thing, your mileage may vary. Now riddle me this, ladies and gents, boys and girls, guardians of all ages. What's more entertaining? Running around the Leviathan opening random chests for hours, which according to every YouTube guide out there seems to be the most optimal way to unlock these weapons, if you haven't yet leveled up your vendor and unlocked opulent focusing, or playing whatever you want, building up Umbral Engrams and returning the Leviathan only when you need to farm out opulent energy, which is needed to focus opulent engram, and can be obtained from Escalation Protocol 2.0. But worse, once you have obtained the deep sight version of these weapons, and essentially completed the usage bounties attached to them, then, and only then, can you start working on the weapons you want. And that's the proverbial fly in the ointment, isn't it? All 25 of these Offstringers could, hypothetically speaking, be 5 out of 5 god rolls, right? For the sake of argument, let's say they are. It doesn't matter. Why? Because weapon crafting. Destiny 2 is a loot-based game. As such, it lives and it dies based on its loot. And not just loot, but how you acquire said loot. Are those activities fun? How deterministic is that activity in your ability to get loot? What is the lifespan of any activity before burnout occurs? How does the loot and the grind for loot and the activity itself and the enjoyment of the activity all come together to provide a unique and interesting game flow state? Does the new game mode add to the game, or is it just bolted on? Is this one of those things that have been designed to be removed from the game? One of those nobody's going to miss it when it's gone sort of things. Now, unironically, in a way I'm glad that Bungie thought through either understanding that this season's main activity was a fucking dumpster fire, or through sheer happenstance, put the best way to get the opulence loot, not behind actually playing the game as much as possible, but behind a level wall. Because running from chest to chest to chest in the hope that you get what you're looking for simply is not fun. Hell, the only reason I did it was for this video so I wouldn't have people in the comments going,
"But Joker, you don't know what you're talking about. You haven't got any craftable weapons. You don't know how to engage with the weapon system. Blah, 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 blah."
But anyways, running from chest to chest to chest to get loot is one of those things that most certainly falls into the category of things that Bungie designed to be ripped from the game and not be missed once it's gone. It's dull, it's boring, it's not engaging, and that's an indictment on the season in and of itself. Now, some of you might be thinking,
"But Joker, why are you complaining? If running from chest to chest to chest to get loot is so bad, why are you complaining that they made it easier?"
well, 2 reasons. First, what's the point of getting new, cool, shiny loot if the activities you have to use them in are either years old or suck? Second, what's the point of playing those activities if I don't have to or want to? If we can agree that running from chest to chest to chest is not the most engaging thing in the world, why is it there? Why is it in the game? Why? Realistically speaking, what these systems do is turn Destiny's weapon grind not into an enjoyable romp through carefully crafted content that's fun and entertaining, but into a game of optimization and spreadsheets and boring shit like that. The easiest way to grind out these new weapons is not by playing the game. In fact, it's the exact opposite. It's by waiting for the weekly reset so you can get the Filaments of Darkness and level up the Crown of Sorrow. And once you realize that, you realize there's nothing here for the core players. Remember, the dungeon was sold separately. Season of the Haunted is designed to be played a few hours a week, not a few hours a night. And perhaps there's nothing intrinsically wrong with that. But it does mean what's there isn't very meaty when it comes to longevity, or engagement, or replayability. The only thing sustaining this season is the narrative, which is good by the way. But that's a 10 to 20 minute episodic piece of content for the next 5 to 8 weeks. And then what? Running the same GM Nightfalls over and over and over and over and over again for loot that's not even as good as other things that already exist in the game and are easier to get.
Did I ever tell you the definition of insanity?
But I digress. Once you've unlocked your weapon for crafting, what is your next exciting gameplay loot? Given that when first crafted, these guns can only have a handful of low-tier perks. People already hate PvP. Are they going to go into PvP with bad guns just to try to level them up? Are you going to handicap yourself by going into strikes, or gambit, or dungeons, or raids? No. What most people do is put on a podcast and either load up Grasp of Avarice or Shirochi and spend hours clicking the fire button until they level up the weapon. Such engage, much gameplay, very compelling, 10 out of 10, would recommend. Now, some of you may be wondering if this is even worth your time. Are these weapons worth the monotony that you have to go through to obtain them, grind out the bounties on the weapons, then craft the weapon, then level up the weapon, just so you can have a 5 out of 5 god-rolled weapon? Well, I could definitely make the argument that Isoluna is better than Ostringer, based on the base stats and perks available. On that same note, I could also argue that Beloved is better than 1000 Yard Stare, based on the stats and perks available. Or at least the two snipers are close enough in PvP that really the deciding factor comes down to PvE functionality. That also makes the assumption you bought the 30th anniversary dungeon. I could also argue that many of these weapons are simply outstripped and spanked by their exotic counterparts. Why use Austringer when I can use Thorn, or Ace of Spades, or Crimson? But that is also a PvP meta-based judgment, because in normal PvE, you can basically use anything. Yes, you should be cognizant of your team and try not to bring the average down, but if you wanted to, and you had the levels, you could use anything. When the PvE meta is brought up, people tend to be talking about the endgame. But even then, in raids and dungeons, it kinda matters, but it really doesn't. The only place what you use actually matters is in hard mode content and Nightfalls. And at that point, Bungie really dictates the meta for you. The meta is only a hand cannon and a sniper rifle if you have the champion mods to go with it. And given how much Bungie has invested in champions, I don't see that changing anytime soon. Weapon crafting, in my opinion, is a double-edged sword. During seasons like Season of the Haunted, it's great, because the core activity is so dull, repetitive, banal, and miserable that it means I don't have to play it longer than I have to. However, weapon crafting should not be a replacement for good core activities. Like I said earlier, Destiny is a loot-based game, and loot-based games live and die not just on the loot available, but the grind to get it. How enjoyable is that grind? All in all, I don't find this loot grind to be engaging. I can in fact disengage from it and not be at a disadvantage whatsoever, because I'll simply just be able to craft things if I put a modicum of effort into showing up, turning on my Xbox, doing the weekly challenge. Is that really how we want the best loot in the game to be divvied out? Seems kind of boring. But hey, those are just my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Remember to like, but only if you did. Subscribe for more. Feel free to donate to my Patreon if you're feeling particularly generous. But above all else, stay frosty.